Welcome to the History of North America. I'm Mark Vinette. In his early 30s, experienced seaman Samuel Champlain joined the crew aboard the Saint-Julien on his first transatlantic crossing. This journey lasted 2 years and gave Champlain the opportunity to learn about Spanish holdings from the Caribbean to Mexico City. Along the way, he took detailed notes, wrote an illustrated report on what he learned on the trip, and gave this secret account, entitled Narrative of a Voyage to the West Indies and Mexico, 1599 to 1601, to his king, Henry IV, who rewarded Champlain with an annual pension. Let's learn more about this adventure with the help of our friends at LibriVox.
Champlain's first voyage to America. Samuel Champlain, the issue of the marriage of Antoine Champlain and Marguerite Leroy, was born at Voyage, now Hier-Brouage, a small village in the province of Saintonge, France, in the year 1570, or according to the biography Saintongeoise, in 1567. His parents belonged to the Catholic religion, as their first names would seem to indicate. When quite young, Samuel Champlain was entrusted to the care of the parish priest, who imparted to him the elements of education and instilled his mind with religious principles. His youth appears to have glided quietly away, spent for the most part with his family, and in assisting his father, who was a mariner, in his wanderings upon the sea. The knowledge thus obtained was of great service to him, for after a while he became not only conversant with the life of a mariner, but also with the science of geography and of astronomy. When Samuel Champlain was about 20 years of age, he tendered his services to Marshal d'Aumont, one of the chief commanders of the Catholic army in its expedition against the Huguenots. When the League had done its work and the army was disbanded in 1598, Champlain returned to Brouage, and sought a favourable opportunity to advance his fortune in a manner more agreeable, if possible, to his tastes, and more compatible with his abilities. In the meantime, Champlain did not remain idle, for he resolved to find the means of making a voyage to Spain in order to acquire and cultivate acquaintance, and make a true report to His Majesty Henry IV of the particularities which could not be known to any Frenchman, for the reason that they have not free access there." He left Blavet at the beginning of the month of August, and 10 days after he arrived near Cape Finisterre. Having remained for 6 days at the Isle of Bayona, in Galicia, he proceeded towards San Lucar de Barrameda, which is at the mouth of the river Seville, where he remained for 3 months. During this time he went to Seville and made surveys of the place. While Champlain was at Seville, a patache, or advice boat, arrived from Porto Rico, bearing a communication addressed to the King of Spain, informing him that a portion of the English army had put out to sea with the intention of attacking Porto Rico. The king fitted out 20 ships to oppose the English, one of which, the Saint-Julien, was commanded by Provençal, Champlain's uncle. Champlain proposed to join the expedition under his uncle, but Provençal was ordered elsewhere, and General Soubriago offered the command of the Saint-Julien to Champlain, which he gladly accepted. The Armada set sail in the beginning of January, 1599, and within 6 days, favoured by a fresh breeze, the vessels sighted the Canary Islands. 2 months and 6 days later, the Armada drew near to the island called La Désirade, which is the first island approached in this passage to the Indies. The ships anchored for the first time at Nacou, which is one of the finest ports of the Guadeloupe. After having passed Marguerite Island and the Virgins, Champlain proceeded to San Juan de Porto Rico, where he found that both the town and the castle, or fortress, had been abandoned, and that the merchants had either made their escape or had been taken prisoners. The English army had left the town and had taken the Spanish governor with them, as he had surrendered on the condition that his life should be spared. On leaving Porto Rico, the general divided the galleons into 3 squadrons, and retained 4 vessels under his own command. 3 were sent to Portobello, and 3, including Champlain's vessel, to New Spain. Champlain arrived at Saint-Jean-de-Luz 8 days afterwards, although the place is fully 400 leagues from Porto Rico. This fortress bore the name of San Juan d'Ulloa. 15 days afterwards we find Champlain setting sail for Mexico, situated at a distance of over 100 leagues from San Juan. Champlain was evidently very much interested in this country, and his description is that of an enthusiast. "It is impossible to see or desire a more beautiful country than this kingdom of New Spain, which is 300 leagues in length and 200 in breadth. The whole of this country is ornamented with very fine rivers and streams. The land is very fertile, producing corn twice in the year. The trees are never devoid of fruit and are always green." The voyage to Mexico occupied a month, and Champlain gave an animated description of the city of Mexico, of its superb palaces, temples, houses and buildings, and well-laid streets, as well as of the surrounding country. After leaving Mexico, Champlain returned to San Juan de Luz, and from there sailed in a patache to Portobello, "the most pitiful and evil residence in the world." The harbour, however, was good and well fortified. From Portobello to Panama, which is on the sea, the distance is only 17 leagues, and it is interesting to read Champlain's description. "One may judge that if the 4 leagues of land which there are from Panama to this river were cut through, one might pass from the South Sea to the ocean on the other side, and thus shorten the route by more than 1,500 leagues, and from Panama to the Straits of Magellan would be an island, and from Panama to the New Found Lands would be another island, so that the whole of America would be in 2 islands." It is thus seen that the idea of connecting the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific by cutting through the Isthmus of Panama is not a modern one, as it was promulgated by Champlain over 300 years ago. At this time, Spain was in great need of a good transportation service at the Isthmus. The treasures of Peru were sent to Europe by the Panama route to Portobello, from where the ships sailed to the old continent. The route between the Pacific coast and the Gulf of Mexico was exceedingly bad. Sometimes the merchants forwarded European goods to Panama, having them transported to Chagres. Here they were landed in boats and conveyed to Cruces. From Cruces to Panama, mules were employed for the remainder of the journey. It was, however, the route taken by travellers visiting Peru, Chili, New Granada, Venezuela, and other Spanish possessions on the Pacific coast. The most regular connection between the 2 oceans was from Fort Acapulco to Vera Cruz through Mexico. If Spain had adopted a better line of communication with her western territories in the New World, she might have derived vast treasure from that source. In the year 1551, Lopez de Gomara, the author of a "History of Indies," a work written with care and displaying considerable erudition, proposed to unite the 2 oceans by means of canals at 3 different points, Chagres, Nicaragua, and Tehuantepec. Gomara's proposals were not acted upon, and the honour of carrying out the project was reserved for France. Ferdinand de Lesseps, who succeeded in connecting the Mediterranean Sea with the Red Sea, was the man who, after the lapse of centuries, seriously interested his fellow countrymen in boring the Isthmus of Panama. Champlain returned to San Juan de Luz, where he remained for 15 days, and he then proceeded to Havana, the rendezvous of the army and of the fleet. 18 days later, he embarked in a vessel bound for Cartagena, where there was a good port, sheltered from all winds. Upon his return to Havana, Champlain met his general and spent 4 months in collecting valuable information relating to the interesting island of Cuba. From Havana he proceeded past the Bahama Channel, approached Bermuda Island, Terceira, one of the Azores, and sighted Cape St. Vincent, where he captured 2 armed English vessels, which were taken to Seville. Champlain returned to France in March 1601, having been absent on his first voyage for a period of 2 years and 2 months, during which time he collected much valuable information. He also published a small volume containing plans, maps, and engravings, fairly well executed for the time, and now exceedingly scarce. The manuscript of this volume is still preserved. It covers 115 pages, with 62 drawings, coloured and surrounded with blue and yellow lines. It appears to have been written between the years 1601 and 1603. The first voyage of Champlain across the Atlantic, though important from a military standpoint, did not suffice to satisfy the ambition of a man whose thoughts were bent upon discovery and colonization.
I'm Mark Vinette, and I hope you're enjoying the ride.